You are listening to Slave Song, an enhanced audiobook written by Jay Koh. Episode 2, Part 1. Year 2005. Unknown ocean, fishing trawler. 15-year-old Song Bae and the freed slaves drift in the ocean. Their fishing trawler has long since broken down. They are lost and helpless. Their water supplies are dwindling, and Song Bae asks all to ration. They tried collecting dripping condensation from the refrigerated coolers for drinking, but the units stopped running without fuel. The little girl is weak and lethargic. Song Bae gives her some of his rations. Few days pass and they are all out of drinking water. Some of the boys drink seawater out of desperation, making them fall violently ill. Scorching days churn into cold nights and 3 more days pass. Most of the boys are now dead. Song Bae cradles the girl's fragile body, hoping to comfort her. He looks out to the dark sea for answers, but it stares back with indifference. The water is calm, its gentle sway mocking their dire fate. Song Bae is tired of just waiting for death. He knows that preserving the last of his strength is wise, but decides to remain productive. One by one, Song Bae returns the dead children to the sea. Their bodies weigh almost nothing, but it still takes considerable effort to lift and lower them. It is a summer tribute to the forgotten. He wonders if anyone misses them. Song Bae is now alone with his little girl. Her body is still warm, giving him hope. He holds her closer, trying to defy their fate. She remains in his arms until her last breath. She looks peaceful, and Song Bae is glad. He holds her until her body turns cold. He tries to stand, but his body does not respond. Song Bae thinks about the promise he made to his mother when he left Korea. He tried his best to keep them, but the ocean got in his way. Song Bae hopes she can forgive him, but thinks that maybe the dead do not care. Song Bae tries again to stand. This time, his mind wins over his body. He has just enough strength to carry her. Song Bae's body protests each step he takes. He sways and trembles, but is determined to reach the edge of the deck. When he reaches it, Song Bae brushes her unruly hair from her pretty face, wanting the sea to acknowledge her. He considers falling with her overboard. He dismisses that thought, knowing his mother would not approve. Song Bae digs deep, calling upon his last bit of strength. He lowers her lifeless body to the sea. Return to present day. Incheon Bridge, Korea. Ye-shin starts to regain consciousness, but she is disoriented. Song Bae fumbles the familiar set of keys from her pocket. She tries to protest, but dizziness overwhelms her. Her eyes close. Later, Ye-shin opens her eyes and sees Song Bae outside the vehicle. He has an MP5 in one hand firing at someone. With his other hand, he is dragging a bleeding K-SWAT officer to cover. She tries to move, but her vision turns blurry. Darkness consumes her again. Flashback to the year 2005. Lost and adrift, unknown ocean. Song Bae's emaciated body lies still on the open deck. A shadow looms over him and he opens his eyes. He sees a haunting image of his little girl, her unruly hair billowing weightlessly. He smiles, finding comfort in seeing a familiar face. But her ghostly visage is overcome by a bright light. When he can no longer see her face, the light begins to fade away, revealing an image of an unfamiliar woman with flowing blue hair. This blue woman is drawn on the starboard bow of an enormous ship drifting near his broken trawler. It is the Norwegian cruise ship Grand Princess. Song Bae hears unfamiliar voices. He sees blonde hair and concerned faces hovering over him. He tries to speak and move, but his body is unresponsive. Song Bae closes his eyes, trying one more time at death. Song Bae dreams that he's been moved. It takes a while for him to climb out of this dream. Before he opens his eyes, the first thing he notices is the cool temperature of his surroundings. After years of living in tropical humidity, the feeling of being cold was almost forgotten. With his eyes still closed, he reaches out with his other senses, trying to recognize his new environment. There was an absence of familiar smells, fish and death. He also felt good, comfortable, which was a rare sensation to him. He was also free from the constant pain he lived with. Songbei tells his eyes to open, and they obey. He finds himself in a brightly lit room with no windows. There is something on his arm, a needle with a long plastic tube leading up to a hanging bag of clear liquid. He is on a clean bed, which should feel amazing since it's been years since he's been on one. But his body is numb, and he feels a bit euphoric. There is movement nearby. A woman dressed in blue is busily writing something down on a clipboard. Songbei tries to speak, but his mouth is too dry to form legible sounds. The woman looks up, her eyes widen, then her face blossoms into an excited smile. Songbei closes his eyes again, his mind not yet ready to accept his new situation. When he wakes up, the nurse brings him food, and Songbei hesitates, seeing a spoon and a fork for the first time in many years. But the aroma of roast chicken and gravy overwhelms him, so he grabs it with his hands and tries to swallow the bird in one bite. The nurse is shocked by his ferocious response to the roast chicken. She tries to hold him back, being careful not to be eaten herself. Songbei soon learns why she tried to intervene. His first proper meal in years gets thrown up into a trash can. Songbei's immediate instinct was to scoop it up and put it back into his mouth, but the nurse frowned at his attempt, taking the treasure away, then bringing him a brand new plate of food. This time, Songbei paces himself, letting his body adjust to such food again. Songbei instinctively looks for places to hide extra food he couldn't put down immediately. The nurse was amused by his attempt, but understood his food insecurities. Old habits were hard to break. The nurse is a blonde woman with the bluest eyes he's ever seen. She is very attentive, looking over every wound and scar collected on Songbei's body with much care. Tears sometimes run down her face as she treats him. She's never seen a body marked so thoroughly by abuse. She watches him closely every meal. There was no limit to the food he got served. It seemed to magically appear whenever he got hungry. A part of him worried this dream would be over soon. The nurse was astonished by Songbei's quick recovery. His body responded instantly to the continued supply of nourishment and rest. They tried talking, but it was clear that Songbei did not speak English. There was a lot of discussion between the captain and the first officer as to how to best deal with their new passenger, but all she really cared about was his recovery and well-being. His body was thoroughly marked with raised scar tissue from wounds new and old. They told a story of violent and prolonged abuse. When she examined his hands and feet, she understood what this young man was. She heard tales of children used as indentured servants on fishing boats, but the stories did not seem real until now. The nurse gives Songbei new clothes to wear. It felt strange wearing clean clothes again. This ship was so large that it had its own beauty salon. There was an appointment calendar on the wall, and Songbei does the math in his head. He comes to the shocking realization that he was about to sit down for his first proper haircut in 5 years. Songbei fights the tears about to flow, remembering his mother who he left behind. The enormous cruise ship had a proper captain who wore a real uniform, with stripes on his shoulders. Songbei liked that. The captain had a lot of questions, but the language barrier got in the way. Songbei was glad they could not communicate. He wasn't sure how to explain his murder of the 3 fishermen. Giving up on English, Chinese, then Japanese-speaking crew, they find a Korean-speaking passenger to speak to him, but Songbei decides to pretend not to understand. The man speaking to him suspects Songbei is indeed Korean, so he continues to tell him what is waiting for him when the ship arrives at their next destination. Songbei will be handed over to the customs and immigration authorities, who will eventually find out where he is from, then return him there. This is not good news to Songbei. He must not return to Korea. He made a promise to his mother. Songbei was trying to reach Los Angeles 5 years ago. Being sidetracked by slavery was an unfortunate detour. When he was growing up, he remembers hearing about LA. Many Koreans went there to start a new life. It was a place full of new opportunities. He needed to get there. 2 weeks later, there is a flurry of activity on board as they reach the port of Long Beach, California. That evening before docking, Song-bae gathers supplies and seals them in a plastic bag. The nurse catches him getting ready to leave, but she does not stop him. Instead, she finds her purse, rummaging through it to find cash. She gives it to Song-bae, along with a warm hug. Song-bae looks out from the deck, seeing the lights from the city of Long Beach. It's an easy swim to shore for someone who's lived at sea for the last 5 years. He dives off the deck, then swims towards the lights. This is the end of episode 2, part 1. Please subscribe and like to be notified of the next episode upload. Thank you for listening to Slave Song by Jay Koh.